Now, on the show every Wednesday, we are joined by our official breakfast show sponsors and supporters, Compassion UK. And I feel like I've known this fella for ages, but I think I only met you about 3 weeks ago, Tim. But you're almost one of the family, the granddad
Well,
of the family.
that makes me feel very wanted, very special. Thank you, Gareth.
Now,
Appreciate it.
for those who didn't hear us last week when we were talking about this, Tim works for Compassion. And really, I suppose your job is to go around the country, isn't it, to churches mostly, and to tell them all about the organisation.
Yeah, that's right, Gareth. In essence, I do lots of different things, but I've got the best job in the world. I get to speak up for children who don't have a voice, and we find that many churches really want to engage because, there's something of the compassion of Christ in them, and they want to engage with the poor and make a difference, both in their local community, but also, across the world, in the developing world, especially where people live in abject poverty. So just trying to speak up for them.
And tell us about Aberdeen over the weekend, because you saw some incredible results there, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, this is just an example of one of our great church partners. We were in big churches, we're in small churches, and every church is special. But probably about 900 people there, and they've sponsored about 148 children, I think, over the last 5 or 7 years. And then on Sunday, another 52 children were sponsored. So amazing. So we really value our partners. We really do.
And it's really amazing because talking about child sponsorship, so I want to get stuck into this a little bit more, because what does it actually mean to sponsor a child? Because, I tried my best actually earlier on to say, they'll be able to get an education, they'll be able to have food, but it's the full package, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. And I guess a lot of sponsors think, okay, what does it mean to sponsor a child? Where does my money go and what does it achieve? So it's all about development. We are an international child development organization, and so we care for the whole child. We don't just want to give them a better quality of life. We don't just want to, put food in their hungry tummies. We care about all of their needs. We want to see them develop in every way, because you can look at just one aspect of their life, but how does that help other aspects? So we want to be consistent. We want to help them in a holistic fashion, really, which is about the whole person. We want them to have a great education. We want them to be healthy in their bodies and in their minds as well. Their whole social, emotional development. Many children have been through very difficult, dire circumstances, which are the results of living in extreme poverty, and seen some pretty bad things and maybe experienced some bad things as well. But also, because we are a Christian organization, we believe that, to give them the opportunity of knowing God for themselves, that brings real hope into their lives. And they begin to realize that they're very special to God and that they can make a difference. You see, Gareth, poverty is a lie. It tells a child you're worthless. It tells a child that you're rubbish. And if all that they see around them is worthlessness and hopelessness and rubbish, that's what they begin to think, and the mind is very powerful, isn't it? It stops us from moving forward in life. And there's maybe people listening today who feel like they've got no hope. There's stuff around them, maybe words have been spoken over them that trap them. And I think that that's true for people in poverty, because it's a lie and stops them from moving forward. We want to change that. We want to step into their world. We want to take hold of the hand of a child and say, hey, you can do this. You're precious. You're special, and we believe in you. And therefore, that's why we want to invest in you. And so we care very much about the whole person. And, we can talk a little bit about some of those different programs, if you like.
I'd love to hear it. So, just to say, actually, that if you're listening to this and thinking, well, how do I sponsor a child? Well, everything you need is available on the website, compassionuk.org, compassionuk.org. And it's £28 a month. And everything that Tim mentioned then is what the child will get. But there's many other projects, isn't there, as well?
Yeah, there's all kinds of things going on, really. We have big interventions that we'll perhaps talk more about as the series goes on. But just to come back to that education thing, we feel it's so important that a child has a good education. So part of that sponsorship helps to go towards the school fees, because so many children don't get to go to school. They don't get an education. I know our kids say, oh, I wish I didn't have to go to school. I was one of those when I was a kid, but actually, we are so fortunate to be able to have an education, because when you have an education, you can begin to get qualification, and that opens up other doors for people in life. But without that education, many children are stuck. Sometimes we hear, oh, but isn't education free in Africa? Well, yes and no. Sometimes there is perhaps the first 2 or 3 years are free in primary education. However, if you can't afford a uniform or a pair of shoes or the school books, potentially you'll get turned away from school. So it's not as free, actually, as sometimes we think. So we want to make sure that we get our children through their education and have further opportunities of education as well. So that's just one exciting aspect of what somebody's sponsorship does.
And there's so much to speak about over the next few weeks and the next few months. And it's a real pleasure to have Compassion joining with us, because we would not join with an organisation that we don't believe in. We wouldn't just think, oh, well, have them on the radio, it's fine. So we do really believe in the great work that they're doing. And like I said at the start of the show, in the next few weeks, we're going to actually go through sponsoring a child on the radio. Okay, so what I'm going to do personally is I'm going to speak with my wife, because she's otherwise known as Cottrell Management, and we're going to sort of have a chat with the kids as well and look online for a child that just there's some sort of connection there, whether or not it's a similar name, it's the date of birth, or just something there. And then when we've got the child that we want to sponsor, I'm going to do it live on the radio, and Tim is going to join me as well. He hasn't agreed to this yet, but nod, yep, Tim is going to be doing this with us. And we want to encourage you to think and to pray about sponsoring a child, because like Tim said, this is life-changing stuff. This is not just giving them food. I mean, that's all well, that's a wonderful thing to do, don't get me wrong, but this is the full package: education, food, and actually, basically, it can be all summed up with future, can't it, Tim? That is a thing. It gives them a future.
Absolutely. Was it Graham Greene who said there's a time in every child's life when a window opens and the future blows in? And I think when you invest in a child, the future blows in. Suddenly there's hope, there's opportunity. You see, poverty is a lack of option. It's a lack of hope. But now somebody believing in them and says, hey, I'm going to help you to get through school. I'm going to make sure that you've got good health care, so that, when you're sick, you're going to be attended to, and the staff are going to love on you and care for you and help you through those times. When you're feeling down, when you're feeling lonely, there's that kind of care and support of the local project and the lovely staff there that are going to come alongside. And we also want to introduce you to the one that we believe can bring the greatest hope into your life as well. And so all of these different aspects all come together to give a child a hope and a future.
A few more things to talk about, which we'll do after this next song, but we always love to hear, actually, your experiences of compassion. Last week on the show, we had Jez and his family, who sponsor 2 children at the moment, and they're thinking about the third. Maybe you sponsor a child already, and you have done for a long time. Maybe that child is now an adult, and you keep in touch. Maybe you've visited them, they've come to visit you. Well, do let us know. The WhatsApp number is 0161 511 9555. 555. That's 0161 511 9555. Or maybe you've got a question for Tim about child sponsorship. Maybe there's something that you can't find on the website and there's something you want to ask about his experiences, because here's a man who's worked in the organization. He knows exactly how it goes. And presumably as well, Tim, you'll have flown once or twice to these countries and you'll have actually seen on the ground how this kind of stuff works.
Yeah, certainly more than once or twice. It's been a great privilege and honor to be able to do that and to take others as well to see exactly what children and their families are going through in so many different parts of the world. And I think when we experience that, and I always want my heart to stay soft. I don't ever want to get hard to this. So I always, want a new experience that I can come back and share that story and speak up for that child and hopefully see even more children released out of poverty. So always a great privilege. Not done too much lately because of COVID and lockdowns and things, but hopefully in the future we will.
More from Tim in just a moment. I don't know about you, but do you ever wonder if children around the world care as much about climate change as we do? Because, I'm very, very I think, well, we're doing a lot, but are other countries doing a lot? Well, that is the case. They are doing quite a lot. And in fact, a lot of the children who are on compassion programs around the world, I mean, here's just a few: Indonesia, Brazil, Thailand and Ecuador, that's just a few. They're going to be working towards, I don't know if you knew this, but it's the Great Big Green Week this week. There's always a week, isn't there? It's thankfully quite a useful one, this, but I think last week it was something like Black Forest Gatto Day, but this is clearly an important one. So what do compassion children tend to do during these times? Because you'd think that they've got so much on their plate already with, learning, with actually making sure that they're fed and all this kind of stuff, but they care about the environment as much as all of us do.
Oh my goodness! I think it's the younger generation in our world today that are the activists and the ones who are saying, "Hey, you've got to do something. Make the decisions that are going to affect our generation in the future and our children as well." And I think that's so important, isn't it? And we're seeing a rise of that. And compassion children in the developing world, no less, probably even more, because they realize that so much of what's going on in terms of climate change is affecting their condition and the circumstances of poverty. And I think that if we want to be good neighbors and we're told to love our neighbor, then in some way we've got to be equipping and helping them to be able to have a better environment to live in, so that they're not going to get poorer, that their circumstances aren't going to get worse. And so many of these children, and Compassion really take this seriously in our different projects. They come alongside the children and help them to understand about good stewardship, looking after their environment and making a difference. You mentioned some of the countries there. I'm thinking of Karen in Thailand, and her and her friends are part of a conservation forestry program where they're learning to protect and care for the environment around them. They're compassion child climate change makers, and they're making a difference. I love the story of Frisky. What a great name, Frisky. He's 21 years old, Gareth. He's been right through our program. He's still coming to the end of that. But he is in Indonesia. He graduated from university with a distinction. So, a real achiever. And he wanted to make a difference and grow food because people were hungry, obviously. So with the help of the Compassion staff and some investment capital and everything, they began to build and install a hydroponic garden. What is a hydroponic garden, you may ask? I can hear that question on your lips even now. Well, it's a cultivation method where plants are grown in water rather than in soil. So mineral nutrient salts are dissolved in the water, and that helps to grow and cultivate these plants. So they planted 300 seedlings of bok choy and lettuce and everything, and then they added another 700 additional seedlings as well. 3 months later, the harvest was there, and they were able to sell their vegetables to 2 big supermarkets in the city. So that's creating an income. It's providing food, and it's sustainable. They're doing something. They're participating in their own development. Can I tell you some more stories?
I'd love to hear these.
I'm excited about this because this is kids. This isn't about, when you sponsor a child, it's not about us just doing it all for them. We're not the white savior. We are just doing our bit, the bit that we've got. We add it in.
It just shows as well. And what I love about this and what Compassion do, it's not just a case of when they get to a certain age, it's right, the sponsorship stops and that's it. You were sharing last week, actually, that somebody who's been through, and I can't remember his name, so sorry about that, but Richmond, that was it, Richmond. He's now working for Compassion, and not just working, he's actually on the board of Compassion.
He's on the board of Compassion UK. So you see a lot of investment, and they want to give it back, whether it's nationally or locally, just like, Frisky here. They want to make a difference. He wants to become an agricultural consultant to help people cultivate crops so that the food supply chain is well maintained. I think of Gilbert and Jimson in Kenya, where, because of soil erosion and because people have been chopping down trees to make charcoal and all that kind of thing, they've planted 300 trees in their community. I think of Martin in Brazil, in the Amazon there, with his friends, Waira and Danny and Keisha and Nina. They've helped to plant many hundreds of trees as well, where there's been deforestation, where there's been machinery coming in, causing devastation in the Amazon forest. They are planting back trees that are going to make a difference to the local climate and help people in that way. So Ecuador, some of the kids there, they just get down on the coastal region. They're on the beach. They're cleaning up their beaches because they want to keep the sea free from contamination. Otherwise, the fish and everything are going to suffer. And so just lots and lots of initiatives, and maybe there'll be more stories as we go through this series. But children are participating in their own development and getting out of poverty and making their environment a much safer place and a better place.
CompassionUK.org is where you need to head to. And as I said, actually, we're going to do this live on the show. I can't promise you it'll be next week. I can't promise the week after, because to be honest with you, when baby number 3 arrives, nobody knows. So I will at some point be taking a few weeks off, but I've bookmarked it and it will be happening live on the radio, because this is such an exciting project. And do you know, some charities, it's just a case of you give the money and you don't hear anything back. But with Compassion, there is a way to actually communicate and, grow older with the child that you sponsor. And through the Compassion app, if you haven't downloaded that, then actually maybe you're sponsoring a child already and you don't know about the Compassion app, then download it, because there's loads of information on there. And whilst you read the information, you can listen to the greatest radio station in the world. But if that doesn't work, then you should be able to listen to Connect Radio through the Compassion app as well. So there's lots going on, and we're going to have you on next week, Tim, to tell us a bit more. And there's so many different projects that you and the team are working with children around the world. We just mentioned a few: Indonesia, Brazil, Thailand, and Ecuador. But what I want to do is to send you over to the website and have a look at some of the children on there. It's £28 a month, and £28 a month to change a life, and to actually have that communication with the family and the child, and to see them grow old, and to actually see the money that you are donating make a difference, to get them educated, to get them fed, to get them clothed. It's the full package. You're giving a child a future. CompassionUK.org. Head over there. And thanks as always, Tim. You take care, won't you?
Thanks so much, Gareth. It's been great to be on again today. Thank you.